In this video, I'm going to go over 2.8 homework. Your assignment for tonight is to watch the homework video and make corrections to your homework. So I want to see if you put your graph here and the graph was actually supposed to be here. I want to see your corrections in a different color. So I want to see your original work with the corrections on top of it. If you got the answer right, then I just want to see check marks next to it. So if you got every single question right, I expect to see check marks, and I want to see your corrections on top of the incorrect work. So just make sure your corrections are a different color. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 1. First thing we need to do always when graphing absolute values is to take the inside part of the absolute value sign and set it equal to 0. So x is equal to 0. We know this is going to be our middle number that we plug in. So we have our x's and y's. 0 is going to be the middle number. We need a number smaller and a number bigger. So first thing we're going to do is plug in -1. We have the absolute value of -1 minus 3. So this is just 1 minus 3. I'll write it over here so we can see. It's just the absolute value of 1 minus 3. So this absolute value of 1 becomes +1 minus 3, which is -2. So our point here would be -1, -2. So we're going to go to the left 1 and down 2, put our point there. Now we plug in 0, so this is just 0 minus 3, which is -3. So our point here is 0, -3. So we stay on 0, go down 3. And then when we plug in 1, we have 1 minus 3, which is just -2. So our point here is 1, -2. So we go to the right 1 and down 2. We can draw our V. Looking at this sign here, it tells us that our V is going to be a solid line. So we're good there. Next thing we need to do is plug in a point. So I'm going to plug in 0, 0. So I plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So 0 is greater than or equal to 0 minus 3. So 0 is greater than or equal to -3. This is true, so that means I'm going to highlight everything inside here. So this is what your graph for number 1 needs to look like. All right, let's take a look at number 2. First thing we need to do is set inside of our brackets here equal to 0. So x plus 4 is equal to 0. Subtract 4 on both sides. X is equal to -4. So that's going to be the middle number that we plug in. We need to plug in one number smaller, so -5, and a number bigger, so -3. We have the absolute value of -5 plus 4 plus 1. So -5 plus 4 would be -1. So the absolute value of -1 is just 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So this is -5, 2. So we go to the left 5 and up 2. Next we plug in -4. So we have -4 plus 4 plus 1. -4 plus 4 is 0. Plus 1 is just 1. So our point here is 0. Oops, it's -4 because we plugged in -4. Comma 1. So we go to the left 4, up 1. And lastly, we plug in -3. So we have the absolute value of -3 plus 4 plus 1. So -3 plus 4 is 1. The absolute value of 1 is still 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So our point here is -3, 2. So we go to the left 3, up 2. Here, we just have a less than sign, so we know we're going to have a dotted line, a dotted V here. Next, we can plug in a point. Let's plug in 0, 0. So we have 0 is less than the absolute value of 0 plus 4 plus 1. 0 plus 4 is 4, and the absolute value of 4 is just 4. So 0 is less than 4 plus 1. 0 is less than 5. This is true. So since it's true, we're going to shade where we have that 0, 0, so we shade outside of our B. So that's number 1. And number 2, remember guys, you can always pause this video to look at the answer if I'm going too quickly. So let's go to number 3. First thing we need to do is set what's inside of our absolute value equal to 0, so 2x is equal to 0. Since 2 is being multiplied to x, we need to do the inverse and divide it. 0 divided by 2 is still 0, so x is equal to 0. That's going to be our middle number. We need one number smaller, so we can say -1, and one number bigger, 1. So the absolute value of 2 times -1 plus 1. 2 times -1 is -2. The absolute value of -2, this becomes a +2, and +2 plus 1 is 3. So our point here is -1, 3. So we go to the left 1 of 3. Next we plug in 0, so we have the absolute value of 2 times 0 plus 1. 2 times 0 is just 0. And 0 plus 1 is 1, so our point here is 0, 1. So we stay on 0, go up 1. Next we plug in 1, so we have the absolute value of 2 times 1 plus 1. The absolute value of 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we plugged in 1, so our x is 1, our y is 3. So we go to the right 1 and up 3. We look at our sign here to tell us whether it's going to be solid or dotted. And since it's just a greater than sign, we have a dotted line through here. Now we can plug in 0, 0 and see if that works here or not. So we have 0, so we're plugging in 0, 0 to test it. We plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So 0 is greater than the absolute value of 2 times 0 plus 1. So 0 is greater than 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 is not greater than 1, so this does not work. So we have to shade where that 0, 0 point is not, so we shade inside the B here. Since the 0, 0 is outside and it did not work, we shade inside. Next, number 4. First thing we need to do, set what's inside of our absolute value equal to 0. Divide by 3. X is equal to 0. That's going to be our middle number. Then we can plug in -1 and +1. So the absolute value of 3 times -1 plus 1. 3 times -1 is -3. The absolute value of -3 is +3, and +3 plus 1 is 4. So our point here would be -1, 4. So we go to the left 1 and up 4. Next we plug in 0, so we have the absolute value of 3 times 0 plus 1. 3 times 0 is just 0. 0 plus 1 is 1, so our point here is 0, 1. Stay on 0, go up 1. Next, we plug in 1, so the absolute value of 3 times 1 plus 1, this is 3 plus 1, which is 4, so our point here is 1, 4. So we go to the right 1 and up 4. We look at our sign here, see that it is a less than or equal to sign. So this means that it is a solid line, a solid V. So we connect our points with a solid V. And now we can plug in 0, 0. So we're testing 0, 0 to see if it works. That means we plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So 0 is less than or equal to the absolute value of 3 times 0 plus 1. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So 0 is less than or equal to 1. This is true. So that means we shade where that 0, 0 is, so it's outside of our B here. All right, so these are the answers for 3 and 4. All right, 2 more to go. So for number 5, again, just like we always start, we need to set what's inside of our absolute value equal to 0. So x is equal to 0. That's going to be our middle number. So we plug in 0. We need to plug in a number smaller and a number bigger. So -1 and 1. So we have 2 times the absolute value of -1 minus 1. The absolute value of -1 is positive 1. Positive 1 times 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. So our point here is -1, 1. So just like how we had to do our order of operations in chapter 1, we're still doing our order of operations here, but our absolute values act as parentheses, so we have to do the absolute value of -1 first before we can multiply and then subtract. So the absolute value acts as parentheses when doing PEMDAS. So we go to the left 1 and up 1. That's our first point. Next, we're going to plug in 0. So we have 2 times the absolute value of 0 minus 1. Absolute value of 0, still 0. 0 times 2 is 0. And 0 minus 1 is -1. So here our point is 0, -1. So we stay on 0, go down to -1. Next, we plug in 1. So we have 2 times the absolute value of 1 minus 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. So our point here is 1, comma 1. So we go to the right 1 and up 1. We look at our sign here, and this tells us it is going to be a dotted line, or a dashed line, whatever you want to call it. So we have a dotted V. Next, we need to test a point. So we're going to test 0, 0. So we're going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we have 0 is less than 2 times the absolute value of 0 minus 1. 2 times 0, 0. 0 minus 1 is -1. So 0 is less than -1. 0 is bigger than -1, so this is not true. So since it's not true, we shade on the side that does not have 0, 0, so we're going to shade on the outside here. Okay, last one, number 6. So first thing we're going to do, find out what numbers we need to plug in. So we set inside of our absolute value equal to 0. X minus 2 is equal to 0. We solve for x, so we need to add 2 on both sides. We get x equals 2. So 2 is going to be that middle number we plug in. We need to plug in a number smaller and a number bigger, so we can plug in 1 and 3. So here we have 2 times the absolute value of 1 minus 2 plus 3. 1 minus 2 is -1. And the absolute value of -1 is +1. So 2 times +1 would just be 2. And 2 plus 3 is 5. So we're going, so this means our point is 1, comma 5. Since we plugged in 1 for x and got 5 for y. So we go to the right 1 and up 5. Next we're going to plug in 2. So we have 2 times the absolute value of 2 minus 2 plus 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. And 0 plus 3 is 3. So our point here is 2, comma 3. So we go to the right 2 and up 3. Lastly, we're going to plug in 3. So we have 2 times the absolute value of 3 minus 2 plus 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. So we have 2 times 1 plus 3. Got to do that 2 times 1 first. So 2 plus 3, which is 5. So our point here is 3, comma 5. So we go to the right 3 and up 5. This greater than or equal to tells us that it's going to be a solid V. So we connect our dots with the solid V. Next, we need to test a point. So let's test 0, 0. So we're going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we have 0 is greater than or equal to 2 times the absolute value of x, which x is 0. So 0 minus 2 plus 3. So here we got a lot of things going on over here, so we got to make sure we do PEMDAS first. We have to do what's inside of our absolute values first. So 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Next we have multiplication, or we actually still have these absolute values here. So the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2, so this is positive 2 times positive 2 plus 3. Now we have multiplication. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 plus 3 is 7. So 0 is greater than or equal to 7. This is not true, so we shade inside. Since our 0, 0 is outside, we do the opposite. So we shade inside of our B. So here are the answers for 5 and 6. So remember, you guys are doing corrections to your homework for today. So you have to watch the video, make all the corrections. So I need to see all the correct answers on your homework. It'll be a new assignment posted on Canvas where you turn in the homework corrections. And if you did them all right, just make sure you put a check mark. But I also want to see your original work, so just do the corrections in a different color.